Well, hi, everybody. Good morning. I'm glad you're here. I'm using my coach voice. I actually don't need a microphone. Coach for long enough. You're able to do that, just like teachers do in classrooms. But I'll use the microphone anyway because I know that they'd freak out if we weren't streaming this. So first of all, by way of introduction, we just all met in person here just about an hour ago or so. What I'd like to do is introduce of course, the topic here is innovations in EdTech, leveraging technology, to enhance learning experiences. So we're really fortunate to have a spectrum of experts here, people that deal in, Lisa Polk, that deals in basically 0 through 5, that age group. We have Jeanette, who's here as well, who deals in bridging between education and business, which is great. And we have Paul here as well, who is really focused on the learning experiences in corporate. And so we have that full agenda. Me, I just play with kids. That's the easiest thing. But I'll give you a little bit of a little blip, and then I'll have each one explain a little bit more about who they are and what their background is, if you don't mind. Lisa, I'm going to start with you. Lisa has an amazing 30-year journey in early childhood education, ages 0 through 5 primarily. She works across multiple organizations and platforms in the USA and abroad. Lisa, would you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Thanks, Frank. It's really great to be here. And yes, I did choose early childhood education as a profession. I know not a lot of people do that, right? And so I do coaching and consulting for lots of different organizations. I also have a nonprofit, and I manage a project with United Way of Greater Atlanta, and we actually educate parents and children together at the same time, and it's a community-based program so that we're helping to give those children a good school readiness foundation at no cost before they actually get to school.
That's great. Thank you, Lisa. Lisa, of course, is the founder and the CEO of her company, Pollyanna's Place.
Yes.
And she's from, well, they'll tell you where they're from as they get into this a little bit more. We also have with us Jeanette Easton, who's the founder of Refound Education. I love that name. It's fantastic. She's visionary, basically empowering educators to launch and scale their businesses. So again, the bridge between education and business, I absolutely love that. It's really apropos to our panel here. She fosters innovation in education, developing alternate learning strategies and solutions, and building communities. Jeanette, a little bit more about yourself, please.
I've been in the social service and education sector for over 25 years. And for a long time, I worked with the rascals, the ones that people didn't want to deal with. I saw the problems where they started, and people weren't doing much about it for quite a long time. The last few years, it became more evident that something needed to be done. And I'm really excited to be in a room with so many innovators and creators because things need to change, and we're developing an ecosystem where we can all work together more seamlessly and give more time back to our families, because if we're not raising our children, then we can't bring our humanity back.
Thank you, Jeanette. We're also really fortunate to have Paul Kern here. Paul is the Senior Director, Learning Innovation at the Wisconsin School of Business, and a lot of other things, by the way, too. 15 years experience in leading learning and development at the corporate levels, really focused on innovative design and e-learning, AI development, and many, many sectors in private business as well as in the scholastic world. Paul, a bit more?
Well, good morning, everybody. Yes, my name is Paul Kern. Interestingly enough, I did start my career as a first and second grade teacher. I was in K-12 education for over 10 years. The first 4 or 5 were in the classroom, and then the last 6 was specifically in educational technology and communications, where I helped educators integrate technology into their curriculums. I then led myself over into, I guess, corporate, which is kind of an interesting change, and moved into learning and development, where I've been lucky enough to spend a significant amount of time in the financial industry as well as healthcare. And COVID hit, and I decided to come back to education. And I came back to corporate education at this time with the Center of Professional and Executive Development. We are affiliated with the Wisconsin School of Business at the University of Wisconsin-Madison campus, and we specifically provide leadership and management training to individuals at all stages of their career, from first-time manager, supervisor, all the way up to C-suite. So I'm excited to be here and meet you all.
Fantastic, Paul. So, told you I play with kids a lot. So for 30 years, I coached at international level gymnasts. That was my thing. Went to a facility when I was 23 into Boise, Idaho, and started a facility that ended up running about 2,500 kids a week through in our facilities. It was a private business that set up kind of a tone for the country as we developed sports, arts, education, entertainment under one roof. When we did that, it started generating a lot of interest. That became a model for the country. From there, we ended up going into helping people expand and grow their businesses, as well as buy and sell. That led to mergers and acquisitions as the investor groups came in, and then that led to the need for a more international look through an international association of child development programs. So I didn't even know when I was in education, when I was a coach. All I knew was I would love these kids to do well. That's what I thought. And now that I've come all this distance, that's what we want. Same thing, we're sort of full circle back here again. But I love this panel. We had a couple of, we had one quick Zoom meeting that we got to know each other a little bit. But with Lisa's background, with the younger children, with Paul's background in corporate, and with Jeanette kind of bridging that gap, I absolutely love this. And so we have a couple of questions for each panelist, and hopefully this will stimulate some thought in your brains as well, because you're all super creative thinkers. You might think of questions to ask. We should have a little time at the end for some Q&A that you could direct at a particular panelist, if you like. Our first question, though, is for Lisa Polk. Lisa, how's educational technology used today in early childhood education?
So when we think about the birth to 5 area, those children developmentally, you have to balance active learning with other forms of media. And so you typically see in early childhood tablets, online educational games, smart boards. That's typically the technology that you see in the early childhood space. As far as use with the children, there's more technology that goes in with the teachers being able to use that to provide high quality educational experiences for their young children that are in their groups that they're serving.
Wow, okay. That stimulated a whole bunch of questions. I have a whole bunch of questions for you actually now. Okay, so we have question number 1 for Jeanette as well. And there's a lot of kind of prefacing to this because she has a lot to say about it as well. With so many EdTech tools on the market, educators and families often struggle with fragmentation and decision fatigue. How does Refound Education go beyond traditional EdTech solutions to create a truly integrated and supportive educational ecosystem? Now there's a topic.
So this was actually a napkin idea that took on a life of its own. So I had opened a micro school and had since sold it. But at the time, I reached out to other micro school owners and other grassroots initiatives. And I'm like, hey, who wants to work together? And the response was so huge that I was like, hey, why don't we just put on a conference? And hundreds of people showed up. And I was like, wow. And what I noticed with everyone, and given that it's the information age, and there's consequences to so much information, right, that we get inundated with, but I noticed right away that we had to digitize the grassroots education movement. And one of the beauties of that, and I know some people from the legacy system are a little bit scared, but there is so much opportunity upon us. Parents will be able to curate their child's learning experiences based on what they're interested in. Educators will be able to create what they are passionate about. So they'll be able to really be the role models that these kids need. And things, AI, all the innovations, they are going to start moving really quickly. And some of our current systems, they're not equipped to deal with what is coming. And those systems were for the times where it was, factory work and the industrial age is over. And now we need creativity, we need problem solving. And it's also, we have a lot of startups. And even though a lot of tech addresses the learning side of things, but they don't address the teaching side. So what we want to do is be able to streamline the efficiency side of things for the businesses so that educators can do more, because founders are the custodians, the principals, the teachers, and everything to everyone. So if they can streamline the process, they can spend more time with their families, put more money in their pocket, and they can start stacking their talents. So for example, I have an incredible educator here with me who has a school, who created a curriculum, and you're gonna notice that there's so many talents to these educators. It's like peeling an onion, and it's so amazing. So if they can start stacking, and it'll lead very well into the gig economy conversation later. We are in a gig economy, and I think we need to start adapting in the education sector.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Paul, I know, that was good. Oh, you have your rooting section over here. I see. That's awesome. Paul, how can EdTech drive seamless, integrated learning ecosystems for executive education and corporate training?
I think the word that really sticks out to me in this question is seamless. You kind of brought that up as well. When you think about corporate education or education in general, they have multiple ed tech tools, and they usually start out with some baseline of what I call something that starts with an L. So an LMS, a learning management system, learning content management systems, or even an LXP. And when you look at all of these types of systems, including performance management systems, knowledge-based systems, even the backbone of an HRIS, a human resource information system platform. They are put together in a sandbox at an organization. Unfortunately, they don't always play real well together in that sandbox. They don't like to share sometimes. And so what happens is things are a little bit of fragmented. I'm going to steal your word on that one. Fragmented. A little bit of fragmented. And so to help really create a more seamless learning ecosystem, I am starting to see the ability to place learning content directly in an employee's workflow. And so it happens when it's needed in the workflow. And what's very cool about that is it offers a personalization. And that personalization really is in the context of the person's job role, job duties, as well as job outcomes that is required. And here's where I really believe that EdTech can be very pivotal in starting to help us explore and help corporations explore how that's going to work and if it's going to work within workflow for their organization. The other thing that I've seen, and we all have seen, especially at least in corporate America, is a more blending of format modality. Nothing new, but sometimes new for corporate. And what I mean by that is it used to be you just had formal education and then maybe some informal in corporate. Now we're seeing the blend of formal and informal learning opportunities coming together to form a learning experience, which is very cool. My favorite is now the asynchronous digital assets being paired with synchronous opportunities such as live learning session webinars, all the way up to face-to-face. And this is really coming true as AI continues to change what we do and think. So for example, I'm gonna date myself here a little bit, but some of you may remember Mr. Clippy, who was on the bottom of, I think, was it Windows or Word? And if you're too young to know Mr. Clippy, a quick Google or ChatGPT can give you some history of Mr. Clippy. But basically, we're seeing AI chatbots within asynchronous learning environments. And these chatbots are more advanced than just, hey, when is this due? Hey, what did I get on that? It's actually more advanced where it can now say, explain that to me differently. Help me understand this. Do you have another example or resource? And then we're looking at the idea of AI tools that have been curated to offer very specific responses and references to the learner. And then all of this ending with microlearning that is beginning to dominate so quickly inside of all of our lives for time. And so I really think we have an opportunity to decide what works for us and what doesn't work for us and how we can make it create the biggest impact. Ultimately, though, when you end it, EdTech will continue to allow us to meet people where they are. And I think that's very, very true in corporate America, and I think I see it true for all of us. How many of you pick up your phone to learn something when you need something from YouTube or something like that? Now, it may not be vetted, right? And I think that's a key that we always work at, to make sure it's a vetted source. But I really do think that as we're looking at creating a more intelligent learning ecosystem, EdTech provides us opportunities.
Wow.
Some really amazing points. Thank you. And now Frank's turn. In an era where traditional education models are being challenged by rapid technological advancements, how do we keep our educational balance?
Yeah, oh, okay. One of the big issues right now is we have augmented reality, we have altered reality, we have virtual reality, we have blended reality, and we have whatever our core reality actually is. And if we have trouble sorting through those concepts, what on earth are these children experiencing? And where are things going? And where does it maybe fall off the cliff? And where are the opportunities as well? That's something that occupies us every day, especially with our international association. People really feel that the whole development of children's programs needs to protect them, right? And give them the tools that they need to cope. But where things are headed right now, we're headed into these fully immersive environments. And I don't know whether they're good or bad. I was doing a little research on this. You're all familiar with the sphere that's here, right? And all of the designs that go in. Have most of you been inside the sphere as well? Have you experienced that? You need to. It's just a regular movie. The movie is like $150 for a couple of hours, but it's definitely worth it. But it is indicative of where we are going. Some of the points that were made through these different realities is, what is the role of these immersive technologies in modern education? Well, if VR, AR, the other AR, et cetera, are coming, how can we actually harness that? And the sphere reminded me of that. And also we were in, a group of us were here in Vegas in January for the Consumer Technology Show. Any of you here for that? If you weren't here for that, that's a phenomenal thing. 3,000 companies from all over the world highlighting the new technologies that they've got from all over the place. And the thing that really hit me was the audio-visual part and what's happening now with that. And in our example, and maybe as the second round, we can get into stories that illustrate our points as well, because that's powerful. And if any of you have stories at the end to share, that would be awesome too, to these points. But in our world, in the Child Activity Center industry, somebody who's teaching children's preschool gymnastics, for example, they're going to be able to project on the walls, what's the theme for this week? It's jungle environment. Great, let's project that on the walls, let's project it on the ceiling, let's project it on the floor. And now we've got sounds that sounds like jungle. And what about the smells that are coming through? And what about interface with the characters that are actually out there? And then there's the actual skill sets themselves. That type of environment is super positive, and we can harness the technologies that way. So that's one example. The other point that was brought up was how to bridge the engagement gap. Well, you're engaging kids there. That's not going to be a problem. Engaging children, and even people that are, in our instance, gymnasts that are moving up the levels, even some type of integrated myostimulation to simulate what the advanced skills will be like in advance for the mental rehearsal of these. Everybody goes through mental rehearsal. Every athlete does that. But mental rehearsal with a little bit of myostimulation, with an audience around, again, in an environment, it can be harnessed positively. I'm just using stories from our particular industry, but I'm sure the panelists have them as well. And then the accessibility and equity in immersive learning, that's something that has to be addressed for sure. But as the technology gets more adaptive, more accepted, it should be less expensive, and people should have access to that, even in their homes, which is good. So I'm trying to paint a picture of these different realities that's a little scary, but also how do we take advantage of them in the most positive ways that we possibly can. And there's a few more here too, but I think that the future innovations for all of this, whether it is the child, whether it is the instructor, whether it is the parent, whether it is a manager, whether it's somebody in corporate, the online metaspheres and metaverse that's coming through this, and the ability for us to step through those environments is extremely positive, and it's right there on the horizon as well. There you have it. Let's go back here. Excuse me. We're going to kind of morph into our second round of questions here. So, Lisa, we're back to you again. How do the foundational skills gained in early childhood support future use of educational technology?
So when we think about the fragmentation and all of the integration of the different tools, this is wonderful technology that's coming and can enhance our classrooms tremendously. But if our children can't read, then they're not going to be able to take advantage of all of the technology or be able to discern or use an AI chat box. And so the skills that they gain, they need to gain these skills early. So building that good solid foundation for reading from that birth to 5 in a developmentally appropriate way, so that by the time that they get to a micro school or by the time they get to college, they can be successful. Everything is changing, but we also have to educate our parents of the students at the same time so that they can also guide their children through the technology that is coming so that they can use it in a safe way and an effective way that actually builds on their knowledge instead of possibly leading them down a darker path that they don't necessarily have to travel. Using this in our classrooms will definitely do everything that Frank said, as well as be able to create that immersive environment. And that also helps these younger students that may not have an opportunity to get out and experience anything. The technology will give them that experience in a safe, healthy way. And then that also, when you think about the critical thinking skills, building that so that when they can read and they're in school and they can use an AI chat box, they can ask the right questions, but they can also understand and comprehend all of the information that's being sent back to them. So early childhood supports the pipeline by giving them those foundational skills early. And without those high quality experiences early, they may not be able to be successful when they're using this even in college, if their comprehension and everything is not where it needs to be.
Yeah, wow, I just stimulated something. I'll just inject something here. I have the moderator microphone, so I guess I can do that.
Yes.
Right now, all of this technology, as you all know, kids absorb all of that as information.
Yes.
But that's not knowledge, which takes time, and it's not wisdom, which takes guidance. But that path of too much information too soon leads people to think they know more than they know. And we do have a little bit of a gap in certain ages entering the employment arena that have certain expectations just because of the information that they have. But again, it's not knowledge and it's not wisdom. And I love that you're going back to the basics at the 0 to 5 so that they can actually maybe have some filter to filter out some of this that's going through.
Yes.
So any follow-up on that?
No, I just definitely agree. It just takes one responsive adult to make a difference. And so if we can be that responsive adult or we can be that responsive teacher, then we can make that difference in whatever that child is, the experience that they're having.
I love it. And that's why you're all here anyway. Okay, we're back to Jeanette. I love your questions, Jeanette, that we kind of formed because they're mini speeches of their own. I love it. Jeanette has a lot to say, so it's good. Jeanette, second question for you. Most EdTech platforms focus on content delivery or student engagement. But what about educator sustainability? How does Refound empower independent educators to not only teach, but also build and sustain thriving educational businesses?
So as I mentioned before, in a nutshell, we're building the Amazon of education. But instead of products, it's services. And it's a combination of hybrid, virtual, in-person, a lot of in-person, and people want neo-traditional. So skills of old, skills of new, and skills of the future. So our schools will teach kids how to make their own tallow, how to build a tree house with a contractor, which we have on our social media. It's really cute. And also have tech integrations. Tech integrations are easier for children to acquire, so it's very important that we build some of those holistic values at a younger age so they have a more positive mental health outcomes as well. And also just our platform is, I guess, in a controversial way, we are ideology free. So a lot of people are family values, or people have their own family values, cultural values, religious values, and who is anyone to say what's right or wrong, as it's going to be different and it's beautiful. And I've noticed that we have organically grown to be so diverse. And it's really amazing, and kids are learning from each other and all our diverse backgrounds and diverse wisdoms between family. And essentially, we are flipping the hierarchy. It's always been a top-down hierarchy, and I think management should be a supportive role. I think we need to listen more, and parents, it's their children. We should be listening, and we need to make it sustainable for educators. Showing up every day for children and being consistent takes grit, tenacity. You need to, it's in starting a business at the same time while having your own family, good golly. You're wearing all the hats. But kids are also bearing witness to all these educators that are breaking boundaries and just trying entrepreneurship. So what happens? There's a trickle-down effect. Kids are going to see even the messiness, the messy middle that, as you grow and transition, kids are going to witness that. And they're going to witness you fail. They're going to witness you fail forward. They're going to come up with solutions. And kids actually love that. And we need to teach financial literacy, entrepreneurship, we have to push these skills forward because traditional models aren't cutting it anymore. And so I really believe that, and a lot of our EAs and ECEs and all these people, they're making poverty. So the kids, the people that are there for our children, their hearts, their minds, they're being paid poverty. And we expect them to pour their best when they're working how many jobs to make ends meet. We can actually pay people more equitably with better structures, and even grow to have philanthropic arms that actually give back to and authentically philanthropic is very important, because how we treat our most vulnerable in society is a reflection on who we are. And having a son who's on the spectrum too, there are 5 to 6 year waiting lists for funding. I think that's appalling. There aren't enough resources, and there are loving individuals that are willing to work. And I think that when we empower people, there is a different kind of motivation. And so I think things are going to get pretty awesome. I know it's going to get a little tricky, but there is so much room for opportunity. And I think that people really need to embrace, engage, collaborate, authentically collaborate, and see where things take us. Because even though it's kind of unknown, there's a lot of excitement to this.
Thank you, Jeanette. That's great. Panelists, I'm going to ask you to start to, Paul's going to go to his next question, but I ask you to start to think about some stories or some pointed examples that point up what you've been talking about, as well as we come to the next round that we'll kind of hit home. Paul, your second question: how can EdTech empower corporate learning leaders and facilitators to create scalable, sustainable learning experiences?
I think as I sit here and reflect on my days of K-12 education as well as an L&D professional, L&D professionals, like all educators, are under a lot of scrutiny right now to really drive impact, especially in corporate America right now. It's the L&D professionals that are required to drive that impact. They want it driven, the impact driven at scale, and they want it done within the rapid moving environment, and so they want it done today. And so we have an interesting kind of, I guess you want to call, change. So for example, we all know that a traditional face-to-face modality is one way of delivering information, knowledge, et cetera. when it comes to that wonderful modality, just like all modalities, there's pros and cons. And unfortunately, that con for corporate America is the price tag, the scalability, and the sustainability within an organization. And I really think that's where EdTech can play a really big pivotal piece on that to really help drive some of the AI opportunities that are happening to allow the face-to-face events to be even more impactful, and then also offer in, like I mentioned, more of a blended approach for other modalities. And I'm starting to see right now, like AI supporting L&D professionals in content development, and letting them now move a little bit away from content and more to about the learning experience as a whole. Like, how are we going to drive that impact as a whole? And here are some examples. So you look at AI, and I look at it a story, I guess I'm going to call it a story. AI, you can brainstorm with AI to help with the course outline. You can brainstorm with AI on objectives and making sure they're based with Bloom's taxonomy or whatever taxonomy you want to use that day. You have the ability, I think, to curate resources, and that's one of the interesting things. I love the fact that I can go and maybe find 2 Harvard Business Review articles or some academic rigor-based case studies and have them do a summary. And then I ask it to compare and contrast it. Then I ask it to tell me how it fits with the objectives, and it saves me some time in trying to locate a resource. The same thing with YouTube, compare and contrast 2 YouTube articles, whatever. And it just gives me the ultimate ability to hopefully make faster decisions about my content and fail forward. I love that idea. Fail forward. And so with that, what I also see too is the idea of AI helping with audience language. I can help program a large language model to help me understand the language that's used in a certain profession or the language used in certain groups. And it helps me make it and tailor the content a little bit more. Now, I say all of that with also a caveat. And that caveat is that an AI should be your co-pilot. A seasoned L&D professional still needs to be the pilot. You still need to have that critical thinking skills to assure that the outputs you are receiving do match the objectives you're looking for, are that lack bias, and are actually accurate. And I think that's a really important part. But really, when I think about the future of corporate education and executive education, I go back to the idea of we have so much content. I cannot tell you how much content is out there for leadership and development. It's craziness. And so I look at the idea of going, I don't know if it's more about content. I think it's that step back on the learning experience and really trying to create a more smarter and adaptive learning ecosystem for employees. Because as L&D professionals continue to be pushed for that impact, more importantly, their ROI at the end of the day, the return on investment at the end of the day, I think AI tools are going to be able to help us get away a little bit from spending so much time in certain areas and spending the time where we need it, and that's looking for the impact. Because it's my hope that L&D teams become known more for a strategic business partner that can help solve business problems rather than a cost center on which they're viewed today. And that's really where I think things are heading.
Wow, thank you, Paul. Excellent.
And now, Frank's turn. Or I think I'm going to start calling you Tony Stark. Amidst all of the emerging technologies, how can schools and families prepare children to cope with accelerating technology and to keep it real in their lives?
Yeah, so what this points out is, when I sit up here among educational professionals, my degree was in environmental science and philosophy, but I was in college on a gymnastics scholarship. So when I sit here in front of professional educators like you and like these people here, it feels a little funny, but it brings a little different dimension to it, perhaps. And keeping it real is really important. In the sports and arts that we deal with, because it's physical, because it's mental, because it's emotional, because it's social, it taps all the boxes. And for me, having children have the ability to have coping tools in a real sense is really the most important thing we can do. And in our physical world of sports, arts, dance, gymnastics, cheerleading, swimming, whatever it is, that's there. And I look at this and I think, what's some examples of a mental journey or a mental rehearsal for this? Well, the mental and the physical, of course, is intimately linked. And one of our customers, a school called Gym Magic out of New Mexico, they blend their reading labs with physical activity. So they'll do a reading lab for 15 minutes. They'll go down on the gym floor and do some physical exercises that reinforce those readings. They'll go back up, do 15 more minutes of a reading lab, come down and do 5 minutes or so of physical activities that reinforce those activities. The same with math, the same with science, the whole STEM thing. But they're doing that on purpose. In classrooms, I've heard of people doing jumping jacks while they're reciting math tables or things like that. But that's serious now. Now, because we're more high tech, we need the more high touch as well. And so that mental physical journey is one that's there. Reversing it to the physical mental, being sure that the children know how to rehearse what it is they're going to actually do physically, mentally first is important. In the social dimension, social emotional dimension, it's so much more important now that, again, with this high tech that we have, high touch. In these environments, children need to be able to form these bonds with other children, with their teachers, with other adults. They need to be able to form those bonds. And as far as the reverse, the social to emotional, having these children involved in, and our classes involved, or our businesses involved, with community causes that are not-for-profit and help people less fortunate. I know these things are all things that are out there. I'm saying that we need to do them by design and with intent rather than just haphazard. This is a path for children to develop the coping skills that they're going to need. Otherwise, they're going to be in this tech world that, remember, the difference between information, knowledge, and wisdom, right, is all of that. And we have got to equip them with it in an organized manner. And there's more to this, but I think that once we do those things, then some student leaders will evolve, and they need to be empowered at a young age when they're able to do so as social leaders as well, and good examples going across the board. So that's what I have. Comment?
I wanted to add in from Paul's adaptive integrative learning experiences, that should be across all age learning. And so it will be more successful and that goes back to preparing our teachers differently, to work with our children differently, and to be able to utilize all of the technology that's coming. And that's here.
There very much are teacher training gaps, and we're finding that not only in the tech side, but also like in the mental health side, how to support kids. And a lot of us are coming together to try and create solutions based on what we're seeing in the trends.
I'm going to be after some final thoughts from the group and possibly some stories. But any questions that are coming up or experiences or things that you'd like to share based on these topics, please.
I was just thinking, what if,
Would you like a microphone?
yeah, I really don't need one.
You can use your coaching voice as
Yeah, I
well.
can use my coaching voice.
We'll keep it on the floor there for a minute.
Okay, what I wanted to say is I'm listening at you guys. What if you guys came up with some solutions using the AI tool and put what you think, and what you think together to build something amazing for the world?
There's a lot of us collaborating, and we need more collaboration. What it boils down to is funding. We have a lot of investment interest, and it's just kind of coming to terms at what's mutually beneficial for everyone, because you have to create a system that's profitable. Right now, the systems are just sucking up tax dollars, but there isn't a business model that makes sense. When it can recoup itself, you can actually feed the economy and make these systems grow. It's a process. It's going to take about 5 to 10 years to build, but I think all of us are going to come together in beautiful ways. We were already talking about extending this online and taking the discussion a few steps further.
Okay, great question. So this blends into something I wanted to mention a little bit later. So one of the initiatives that's already out there and already being funded is a metaverse for this, because our whole philosophy in our businesses, in our profits, in our not-for-profits, et cetera, is self-directed learners on self-directed journeys, because that's the role of the world right now. That's been the one way that we've been able to solve the human resource capability and the new staff paradigms that are out there, especially at the younger ages. It's all about a what's in it for me. All right, and that's okay. That's just human nature. There's not a problem with that. But based on that, self-directed learning has to be integrated into the metaverse through these different metaspheres. And so what's being developed out there now, I can tell you because we're part of it, is a whole world, and this is in the child activity center industry, sports arts education, that's being developed out there where avatars come in, you design your avatar, and you decide, where do I want to go today? I would like to be in education, and it interfaces with the AI, but I would like to have a special needs emphasis. Okay, great, no problem. We're going to point you towards some special needs resources. You can hyperlink over to this platform, and you can explore that. What else? Well, I'd like to make this a business. How do I get a little business knowledge? Fine. You hyperlink over here, it's special needs business. Now I need some equipment. Where do I go? You're going to go to a supplier, and then you're going to go to an association. And that's just one path with one person at that time. Teachers, as well as students, instructors, et cetera, all would be on self-directed journeys, because that is the answer. When it's done with self-interest in mind, but then it has an altruistic outcome, that's where we're at. And that's kind of what I heard everybody saying, as a matter of fact. Paul, a comment on that?
I was just listening to you, and I was thinking, one of the trends that I'm seeing, at least in the area I am with some higher education, is definitely for the students to have that I can't even say it, my goodness, experiential learning. I had to say that word correctly. Experiential learning, and building that into kind of the idea of some self-service learning, as well as, again, the formal and informal. Higher education obviously has a large bone of formal learning, but they are beginning to expand out further into informal learning. And like I mentioned earlier, greater modalities to reach more people more accurately. But yes, I see that self-directed, and from a workforce standpoint, we are sitting with 5 generations in a workforce. And when you're sitting with 5 generations in a workforce, there is a lot of communication that needs to happen, and a lot of interpersonal things that need to happen, and I am seeing trends of that not working real well with the interpersonal side. And so I think as organizations continue to lead for engagement, these are the questions that they need answers to.
If I could just piggyback off of what you said, experiential learning, and the communication side, tech is so important. And we're also starting to see some of our schools evolve. One of our schools in Canada, it's very cold. Some people like to snowbird. But one of our schools, for example, opened up a jungle school in Panama. So the parents can co-work, and the kids get a learning experience. And they're starting to develop some exchange programs that are just naturally starting to evolve. And how cool would it be to learn in a jungle? And it adds to our experiences and wisdom. So,
Early childhood is very far behind as far as the effective use of technology within programs, with teachers. So there's still a lot of room for growth there, but early childhood is still evolving, and it's going to continue to evolve as long as we need consistent standards for the teachers. We need consistent objectives, outcomes that are the expectations just nationally. And so until that becomes more uniform, then there's going to still be huge gaps in different locations with their use of technology effectively.
To Paul's point, and by the way, I'm sorry, what was your first name? Felisa. That was an awesome question. You've stimulated. Well, that's good. I figured you would. So, but banking off of Paul's point about the 5 generations in the workplace right now, what an opportunity. What an opportunity. Yeah, are there issues? Yes. But getting them together to appreciate that, there are more generations living together these days, right? Lots of households with 2 generations, 3 generations, because of the economy or just because they just want to. They want to be more closer family. Those things are all good. And that's another part of coping skills. Would you say that diversity, inclusion, equity is part of coping skills? Oh, hell yes. Excuse the recording, all right? We need that, and I don't care what societal movements are going backward right now, we need it. We absolutely do need it. And in the final response to your question is the metaverse that I'm describing as a self-directed learning, that's maybe a couple of months away. So it doesn't take a lot. Okay, you have a microphone again.
Okay, my question is, I was just thinking about when we're looking at the independent learning for the students, what data are you grabbing to understand, like, what could be the top areas that they may need support in? You know what I'm saying? With the learning analysis, are you getting that data to know what they need and what they may need help with? Because in the society today, we're all faced with so much trauma. Teachers are overworked, underpaid. The students probably may not be able to like the teacher or vice versa. So how are we able to capture the essence of knowing that it's a twofold? It's the teachers wanting to be able to give more, but they probably can't because of funding. And we have the student that may have a disability possibly as well that's in the class with students that may be at a faster pace. So it's all different areas that could be linked to this.
I think a lot of assessment up to this point has been very formal. There is data, like there is some recent data to say that homeschool and alternatively educated kids are performing 35 to 37% above public school. That's significant. But a lot of the people that are homeschooling, they are professionals. A lot of them are actually very sharp and are trickling down in 5 generations, as you guys were talking about. That's a big accumulation of wisdom that should be bestowed to the next generation. There needs to be informal assessments. Some of these kids are, I'm seeing kids like starting multifamily investment properties and managing portfolios. My godson was getting a 30% in economics, but he was taking higher education finance courses in trading. I was like, I guess you're bored. And that's the problem. They can just go find the information. So it's really exciting how things will evolve. I don't think we have the data systems to support what is coming.
Okay, so we have 3 minutes left. I think we're okay. Oh, question. Good, great. And by the way, you should have been on our panel up here. We should have had you right here. You're on the, we need you.
I'd like to ask about 2 things that I heard mentioned by numerous members of the panel. First of all, passion. You all talked about passion, and passion is necessary to have a self-directed learner. A self-directed learner is not going to exist without passion. And I'm wondering if the new tools that are available to us might be able to create passion centers where adult teachers who want to really think about thing X, can think about thing X with kids, and then kids can go to another such center where teachers would be differently passionate. The second part of the question is, there's a huge gap between what's measurable in education and what's inherently immeasurable in education. Joy, passion, transformation. These things are not something you can put on a rubric. These things are something that happens to a kid who remembers. I once said the only way to really evaluate a teacher is to ask her students 20 years later what they thought of her, because that would be the real evaluation, and it would be immeasurable. So I wonder how the technologies can help us to bridge that gap.
Great. You want to take a crack at that? I can start.
Oh, go ahead.
So I think that to have passion, to some degree, you need to have a little bit of perceived control. It's really important, control of your own path. So one of the things that we've done, I know we have 2 minutes left here. We were concerned about filling up our panel. I don't think that was the problem here. But in terms of perceived control, one of the models we use, you mentioned the word transformation. As people grow up, they have their career, their business, whatever it is, if it's a business or their educational world. They have their technical world, the technical educators, technical gymnastics, technical whatever, and they have their personal life. What we developed through that was actually 3 figure-8 infinity loops. There are 8 factors in developing your business, 8 factors in developing the technical aspects, 8 factors in personal, there's 8 factors in developing interpersonal relationships. You can use models like that, and those models are in in that metasphere. People can follow those if they want or develop their own model, but it's just a suggestion. But those things to elicit that passion, I love the two things you said. One, people that already have it going, where do I find other educators that are like me? That's one. And then two, how to have that fire lit underneath you as well. Everybody here has got it, obviously. You can tell from their talks. So final thoughts, maybe 15, 20 seconds, something like that. Lisa, let me start with you. With the microphone.
Well, just the same passion that we have, you all have. And so let's all put our passion to work and develop those things and those ideas that have come to light today. And collaboratively, we can do anything. And we can really be that change.
Thank you, Lisa.
I implore people to, yes, pursue your passions. Look at the economy, look at supply and demand and your passions, meet in the middle. But I think the term educator is going to change dramatically. Kids are going to be learning from those who do, not just from those who teach. And of course, teachers have invaluable experience and skills, but so do people that are industry leaders, and they're going to be pivotal in mentoring the next generation. And yeah, so please, those of you, even with busy schedules, put yourselves out there, mentor someone for a day, for a week, inspire someone. It doesn't take very much. So go back into your communities and do something positive.
Paul, final word?
I think the final word that comes to mind is one thing I really enjoyed about this panel is the cross-communication between different levels and layers. I think that's becoming more and more critical because as one layer changes, it impacts another layer. And so I think it's very important that cross-communication as well as collaboration begins to occur across all levels. I believe that is where a true power can lie because that, again, that's where the passion is.
Yeah, if you want to hear more from a non-educator, I think I speak tomorrow at 9:40. So if you want to hear more from a non-educator. But it was a joy to work with all of you. You were just wonderful. I want to thank Education 2.0 Conference for having us as well. We put some thought into this, and congratulations to all of you, too, for what you do. It's all of us that are moving this forward together. Great. Thank you.